Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk about the Galactic Center some more, specifically about out-of-bounds planets in the Galactic Center. I'll link, depending on where you're watching this, you'll either have to copy and paste the links, or you can click them. If you're on YouTube, you can just click it. Instagram is fucking weird and won't let you link a bunch of stuff. I'll link some blog posts that I've done about out-of-bounds planets, just specifically about out-of-bounds planets, and a video that I've done about out-of-bounds planets. So in case you're not as familiar with what they are, you can take a look and, you know, get a better idea. Because not everybody knows a whole lot about this or pays attention to them. But before I do any of that, before we start talking about that, I want to start with the disclaimer that I always start with, that I am not a Galactic Center expert. I am literally just fucking with astrology here. I have a lot of astrological knowledge, but this is one area that is really more of a mystery that I'd like to, you know, figure out or try to put the pieces together to figure out. So I reserve the right for any and all of this to be wrong later without anybody being like, well, you said this. No, I'm not claiming that I'm correct here. I'm not claiming that I'm right or that I even remotely know what I'm talking about. Though I think I'm somewhat on the right track. But, you know, I do reserve the right for this to be wrong later. This is literally just fucking with astrology. So, okay. To begin, okay, out-of-bounds planets, just really quickly. When you're, and I don't know how to find these on another website. I use astro.com. You can probably find them on other ones, but I use astro.com. So when you're on astro.com, I'll just show you how to see if you have any out-of-bounds planets yourself. Okay, so what you do is you're on your chart, right? Like you've created your account, you're on your chart. You go here to additional tables. It's right there. You click on it. Oh shit, hold on. Sorry, clicked on the wrong thing. You click on additional tables. Okay, now another thing will pop up and it'll look like this. Okay, over here it says declination. That's what you want to look at for out-of-bounds planets, to see if a planet is out of bounds. And a planet is considered out of bounds when it is beyond 23 degrees, 26 minutes of declination north or south. So, if you're not familiar with what declination is, just take a look at the post that I'm going to post and it'll explain that. But that's what an out-of-bounds planet is. And essentially an out-of-bounds planet functions differently than it might function if it were in bounds. It's no longer under the domain of the sun. It's kind of off on its own, going like this to to how it's supposed to function. Planets that are out of bounds in a natal chart, they really are kind of wild cards. You can get an idea of how an out of bounds planet might function by looking at the whole chart, and you would have to take the whole chart into account. But really, I do find that they are wild cards. You can end up, like, let's take the moon, for instance. You could wind up having somebody who's got a Cancer moon. That's like the most unemotional person in the world, right? Like weirdly unemotional for a Cancer moon. And usually usually Cancer moons, regardless of what is going on in the chart, they are a little bit more emotional. Now, depending on their whole chart, they might be more or less, but there is a comfort with emotion there, usually. Even if they're not really comfortable, there is a comfort in some way with them, or a knowing, right? If somebody's got the moon in Cancer and it's out of bounds, you know, they might be like one of the most unemotional people you'll ever know. Same thing, okay, look on the flip side of that, you might have somebody with a moon in Capricorn who is the most emotional person that you know. If that is the case, I would look and see if the moon is out of bounds. Because the moon out of bounds will change the way that the planet might change the way that the planet would typically function by sign and house and aspects. It does kind of give a wild card feeling to that planet. And any planets that are there. Now, in the same sense of saying along the same lines, there is something that's kind of a wild card feeling about the GC. How do I want to put this? Out of bounds planets can be both, I mean, what is good, what is bad anyway, right? But out of bounds planets can function good or bad, right? They can be genius or madness. They can be the revolutionary or the renegade outlaw. You know, these planets can function a lot of different ways. And I kind of feel like there is a similar feeling to the GC. That it's not under anyone's domain as it is, right? I don't think that it is, because really it plays a lot into the gravitational pull, the way that the sun orbits, the way that the earth orbits, the way that our whole solar system orbits. It plays a a gigantic role in that. So it's not under anybody's control or domain as it is. It's really able to do this all the time if it wants to, right? It can't, it can. And sometimes doing this is a great thing, and sometimes, it's not so great. So I do feel like the GC is something that can be a really wonderful thing and can be used in wonderful ways, or it could cause some problems. Kind of in this, and I guess that's another reason why I make the correlation between it and out of bounds planets, because the same thing kind of exists with them. Not only that, out of bounds planets have a very Uranian feeling to them. They do. Going off and being able to do their own thing, that's very Uranian. And as I've mentioned before in other videos, the GC definitely has that flavor to it. Now, it also has, I've also talked about having a Plutonian flavor, a Neptunian flavor, right? Certainly a Jupiter retrograde flavor. But the Uranian thing, it really, out of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, I do feel like it has a very Uranian charge to it. It just does. I think it does. I really do. So, in saying all of that, I decided to look at all of the people that I mentioned so far in videos, in blog posts, to see if there's any correlation between out of bounds planets, between these people having out of bounds planets and having the GC contacts that I've talked about before. With the whistleblowers, truth tellers, conspiracy theorists. I was curious to see if there was any correlation there, because it's not like out of bounds planets are super, super uncommon, but they're not super, I mean, I know people that it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, some people have, and it also depends on where the moon's nodes are when you're born. Like, if the nodes are closer to zero, if the north node is closer to zero Aries when you're born, or if it's closer to zero Aries when you're born, the more of a chance you have of having out of bounds planets, or more out of bounds planets. That probably explains why I have 3. Because when I was born, the north node was at zero Aries. Exactly. So the closer you are born, when you're born, to the North Node being 0 Aries, the more likely you are to have out-of-bounds planets. But that doesn't mean that you can't have out-of-bounds planets other times. There just tends to be an upswing and out-of-bounds planets at that time. So they're not totally uncommon. But I've read for people that'll have 1 or 2 or whatever. I've read for a lot of people that don't have any. So, I do think that it's interesting in looking at this. Here's my little, in looking at all the people that I've looked at so far, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, Donald Trump, Alex Jones, Bill Cooper, Gary Webb, Jeffrey Wigand, Aaron Brockovich, Frank Serpico, Colleen Rowley, Karen Silkwood, Mark Whitaker, and Alexander Litvinenko. I know I'm pronouncing that wrong. Out of all 14 of those people, 10 of them have planets out of bounds. A majority of these people that have planets out of bounds, the planet that's out of bounds is somehow connected to the galactic center. Either it's the planet conjunct the GC, or it's the planet opposing the GC, or it's the planet trine the GC, or it's, yeah, actually, I don't think any of these people had Jupiter retrograde. None of them did. So it was one of those, but there was a connection to the GC in a lot of these cases. Now, the people that didn't have anything out of bounds, first one is Julian Assange. And I've got some questions. You know, the more that I think about him in general, the more that I wonder if he should actually be on this list. Because, and I probably need to do a little bit more research. I mean, I know who he is. I know what he did, I know all of that. But I do wonder if he actually should be on this list. And it's not because he doesn't have anything. He also doesn't have anything conjunct the galactic center. He's one of the ones that has no planets out of bounds, and he also has nothing conjunct the galactic center. But I don't know. The truth that he told, right? The truth that he put out there, he wasn't like Edward Snowden actually worked for the government, right? Like, he worked for the government for a while as contractor, I believe, with the NSA. So he was more involved with the truth that he was telling, whereas Julian Assange was not in this, as far as I understand. I could be wrong about that. But my understanding is that people would just give WikiLeaks shit to publish. So I don't know. I've got my questions about whether or not I actually want to keep him on this list. But I got to flesh that out some more. So he does not have any out-of-bounds planets. Also has nothing conjunct the galactic center. Okay, so there are a couple others. Gary Webb. Gary Webb is on this list. He's somebody that I've talked about. I don't know what the hell's going on next door. He's somebody that I've talked about before. He doesn't have anything out of bounds either. But the only things that he has conjunct his, the only things he has conjunct the GC are the North Node and his ascendant, neither of which are real physical bodies, right? One is an angle or a cardinal point or a personal sensitive point or whatever you want to call it. Does nothing tangible there. And the North Node isn't tangible either, right? So I think that's interesting. But he has no planets out of bounds. Okay, Alex Jones, he has nothing out of bounds. The only thing that he had, and then again, he has the North Node conjunct the GC. That's what he has conjunct the GC. Again, with the North Node. Not a tangible body. I do feel like this plays in somehow. Not that it's not important. I do think that you can still use the nodes in these cases, but I do think that it's interesting that two people that had like GC connections or, contacts, things going on with the GC. What they have conjunct the GC, they're not actual tangible things in the sky, and they're the ones that don't have anything out of bounds. Now, the only one here that throws me, and I've got to look at his chart some more, is Frank Serpico. He doesn't have anything out of bounds. Now, I also don't have his time of birth. Not that that really, really matters here, as long as he's born on the same day. And I do know that sometimes people that are well known, they don't always have the correct date of birth on file, or the correct time of birth on file. I've seen that too. But I don't really think that that matters so much here, as long as if he was actually born on April 14th, in 1936, I believe. It's 1936. Then this would still, the planets aren't going to move that much out of bounds, even if it was, I set the chart to noon, even if it was, even if he was born like at 10 o'clock at night, I don't think the planets would move that much. The only one that might, and really, this is the slowest but moving planet, so probably not. Pluto is very close to being out of bounds. But it's not. It's close, but it's not. Now, there is something else I noticed here about him. He has, his north node is very close to the GC, the window of orb that I've been looking at for conjunctions. It's very close. A little bit beyond it, but it's close. His Jupiter retrograde is what is conjunct the GC. That north node, though, it's at 7 degrees Capricorn. It's a little out, but I do wonder if that north node being involved has something to do with why there aren't any out of bounds planets there. Just like with Alex Jones and with Gary Webb, with their north nodes being conjunct the GC, they don't have any out of bounds planets either. Meanwhile, you've got somebody like Karen Solkwood, who has her south node conjunct the Galactic Center, and she has Mars and Pluto out of bounds. But having the south node conjunct the GC, she's coming from a place of understanding the GC energy well, whereas Alex Jones, Gary Webb, they don't. They're coming from a south node in Gemini. So I do think that matters. I do think that matters a little bit. But I do think that's an interesting connection. I'm going to have to go through the charts that you all have, all the research that y'all have given us. I really appreciate that, again, by the way. And if you want to be a part of it, email us at letsfwithastrology@gmail.com. Let us know that you want to be a part of the research. It's never too late if you want to join in. But I do need to go through them and look at the planet, look at the out of bounds planets for people that have sent in their stuff. I am curious about that because I do feel like there's something to it. I really do. I really, really do. I think there's something to this. Exactly what that is, I don't know. Not completely, but I do feel like it. I feel like it's interesting. It's definitely something to explore further. I'm gonna get going because this one got kind of long. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Apaterno Astrology on Instagram. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube or whatever the fuck people do, you can search for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you want to, if you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. Shit. I'll see y'all later.